G'day legends, welcome to another episode of Rucking Good. This week I have a return guest. Dr Lisa, the osteo, is coming back. Dr Lisa would have been our OG fan. She's found the RUKVEST early and loved them, and she has been recommending them to her clients for the 6 months that we have been live. Yes, can you believe it's been 6 months? So anyway, I wanted to catch up with her, get a bit of an update on what's been happening over the past 6 months and just her kind of feedback on what she thinks about the ruck and what she's getting out of it from her clients. So hope you enjoy.
I've already done a 10-kilometre Nordic walk today.
Oh, You've done a 10k Nordic walk already?
Yes, I have.
What?
That's crazy. Up and down hills, heart rate up to 160.
Yeah. Can you believe 6 months, almost to the day since we launched Ruck?
Nice, congratulations.
Which is pretty cool. But I thought it was I know we were originally planning to catch up every other week, but I figured once every 6 months isn't a bad effort either.
It's gone so very fast.
Oh, look at these sausage dogs. So you were one of the first adopters of the ruck, particularly, personally, and then also in a clinic setting.
Yes.
So I thought no better person to catch up with after 6 months and kind of just get an update. For me, it's a bit of a cool, get some live feedback because you have been using them yourself and in the clinic for 6 months.
Yes.
And just kind of, touch base and see where you're at and your experiences with everything over that period of time.
Well, I absolutely love it. And for me personally, I got some data back with bone density testing and things like that, and it certainly helped maintain my muscle mass in my legs and my hips, for example. Bone density has improved, but that's just sort of personally. But what I'm loving is going for a walk in the mornings and seeing more and more people wearing ruck vests. It's kind of really exciting. It's like there's this code happening, like this secret code that, oh yes, you know what I know.
You give the little secret nod.
Yeah, little secret nod, and even I went to a meeting a few weeks ago and this random lady just came up to me and said, oh, I got a ruck vest because of you. I said, oh, who are you? I follow you.
She wasn't one of your clients?
No, she wasn't a client. She was just a follower on Facebook. And, those people that don't post or don't say anything to you, they just watch.
Yep.
And
sit in the background.
Sit back in the background. But what I've noticed is a couple of things. People start too heavy. People think, oh yeah, I'll be right. I'll just put a 8-kilo ruck vest on me and I'll be fine.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's the feedback you're getting as well.
Well, that's the most of our returns. We don't touch wood. We haven't had any returns through to faulty products or something going wrong. All of our returns to date have been people who have purchased an 8-kilo vest, had it arrive, and then quickly email us to go, oh, I think I've made a mistake, can I swap it for the 5-kilo?
Yeah, I think that's that's actually the thing that people are doing, I think, wrong. Maybe not wrong, wrong's not the right word, I suppose, but they're underestimating the power of what an extra 5 or 10% of your body weight will do, the impact it will have on a walk.
Yep.
So I have upgraded from a 5 to an 8, and I could not believe that extra 3 kilos, which takes my carrying weight from, say, 10% of my body weight to 15%. And you don't think it's much.
No. Well,
but
particularly with you too, because you have got quite a good level of baseline fitness.
Yes. So it is humbling. So I guess what I've noticed is that people have then overcommitted to the weight, and then they're kind of like not using it.
Yeah.
Because it's too heavy.
Yeah.
So I think that perhaps starting way, way, way lighter than you expect And I believe you're making a product that may be lighter.
Yes, yeah, we are going to do a 3. So there's a spoiler alert right there.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. So through like yourself and other osteos and other allied health people who are dealing with probably older clientele.
And injured clientele.
And injured, yeah. So whether they already have osteo or whether they're carting spinal injuries and they know the benefits of implementing weight, but the 5 kilos probably too much weight to implement off the bat. So between that, and we've also had some actually big level of interest from mums of autistic children. So children with autism. And so a couple of them have just found out through default that their kids really, really like putting on their 5 kilo vest. But 5 kilos is probably too heavy for them if they're an 8 or a 10-year-old child that might only weigh, 30, 40, 50 kilos. So, yeah, so I think we've sort of established enough of a user case to launch a 3. And, yeah, and that's going to be good for a whole lot of people probably in your world and everyone who's in that allied health space who has patients that are a little bit more fragile.
Well, and to be honest, a lot of the research that's done on adding weight for osteoporosis, for example, and I'll just slightly divert the conversation, but there's a research that came out of Griffith University about the benefits of weight training and jumping, for example. Fantastic results for postmenopausal women. However, out of 600 people that wanted to be part of the program, only 100 were chosen because the rest were too unfit or had injuries, didn't meet the criteria. So the criteria was such that you couldn't have any pre-existing back problems, you couldn't have any pre-existing spinal fractures.
And so everyone's like, I'm out.
And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, the majority of my client base have spinal injuries, osteophytes, osteoarthritis, they've got disc injuries, and you're wanting them to lift 5 to 8 repetitions of their 85% max and then jump.
Yeah, right.
And they just can't do it. So the cohort of people that these studies support or that work for are people like me.
Yep.
That are fairly fit, don't have any back issues. I've got maybe a little bit of a dodgy knee, so I have to be a bit careful with some of my jumping, but I'm the criteria that would match.
Yep.
And I'd get fantastic results, but that's not my population.
But you're the outlier.
I'm the outlier, exactly. Yep. So there comes in rucking. So what I'm recommending to my patients is to simply put it on at home for 5 or 10 minutes, a couple of times a day.
And starting
every
at the
day,
5.
Starting at the 5.
Or at the 3 when we've got the...
Well, when you've got the 3, that'll be absolutely fantastic because 3 kilos over 10, 15, 20 minutes, slowly building up. So we know that the important part of building strength and muscle mass is progressive overload, right?
Yeah.
Which means that today you can put your ruck vest on for 5 minutes and the next time you can put it on for 7 minutes and then 10 minutes. So...
Yeah, and it's the same. We have the buyback system to try to encourage people to start lighter and progress up. But Emma said something the other day when we were at an event and someone was like, I don't know whether to get the 5 or the 8. Emma said you can always make the 5 kilo harder by varying the terrain and the intensity and she's like, but you can't sort of take away once you're off and running and you've got 8 kilos on outside of dumping your expensive vest somewhere and hoping that it's there when you come back in the car to pick it up.
Well, there's actually a couple of ladies that I know that I run into They got the 8 vest. One of them got the 8 kilo vest. Was too heavy for her.
Yep.
So they go for their walk together, exactly where we're walking.
Yep.
And they swap it. When one gets tired, the other puts it on. And then the next person, when they get too tired, they swap. So they're using one vest between 3.
Yep.
And then eventually they'll get 2 vests and just keep swapping. So that's a really great trick if you're going with a friend.
How clever.
So that's clever.
Very clever.
And that was just because they found out when they went for the lady who actually bought the vest went for her first enthusiastic 8 kilo weighted vest, went, holy crap, what have I done?
Yeah.
And I did that when I went for my 8 kilo ruck vest the other week. I went, oh yeah,
when you first got it?
When I first got it, I thought, oh, I'm just going to go for a, and I was Nordic walking too, so with my poles.
Yeah.
And I thought I had to ditch something, so I ditched the poles, did a lap around the house and around my block and ditched the poles because I couldn't do both. And then ditched the ruck vest a little bit later because it was just too intense.
Too much.
But what Emma said is fantastic because you can make the 5 kilo vest harder.
Yep.
In terms of you can halfway through your walk do some body weight squats, do some lunges, find a park bench and do some push-ups.
Yep. Find some stairs.
Some stairs, a ramp, and I guarantee your heart rate and your workout will go next level.
Yeah. And at the point where you've got your 5 kilo and you're doing all those things and it's becoming easy, so with your clients, you're recommending, say, a 5 kilo vest.
Yes.
Recommend that they just start by adding that vest to some of their existing movement, whether that's just walking around the house.
Yes, like do the
walking the dogs. Like just the little, before they go out for a big, long, meaningful walk.
Yes.
And
particularly around the house, even like lifting up the washing. So all of a sudden, you're doing a weighted deadlift when you lift up the washing basket, for example.
Yeah.
So it can become a meaningful workout, going up and down the stairs in your house. But even just sitting, because when you sit with a weighted vest on, it engages different muscles and you sit with a better posture, right? You can feel your back muscles engaging. So instead of just slumping at your desk, doing your computer work, you're suddenly having to hold yourself in a manner that's engaging more muscles.
Yeah, actually I was going to ask you about that. Recently I had another one of our very enthusiastic community was wearing it on a push bike. Ooh. And so I was like, my first thought was, I can't imagine that you're getting a whole lot of benefit from that because you're not on your feet. And so I messaged her and I was like, hey, like super keen to know how you feel using it on a bike. And she said it feels almost core. She goes, it just works your core, because she goes, you don't realize how much you're moving side to side and up and down when you're riding a push bike. And she said, and it is, she even feels it in her legs, because she goes, I'm carrying more weight. So to propel the bike forward takes more energy than when she's not wearing weight. And I'm like, oh. And it was just something that I never ever kind of considered as a realistic option for a weight vest, is riding in it. But yeah, she loves it.
I even wore my weight vest to the gym for a lower body workout, and I compared that to the workout that I did, exactly the same workout, same weights the next week. And whether I had progressively improved in 1 week with the weights, I don't know, but it was significantly easier the second week without a weight vest on.
Yeah, right.
Simply, even doing lat pull downs, I was doing some lat pull downs, and the weighted vest, it was just harder. So I think there's some value in wearing it seated.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of that because of the change in your posture.
Well, and you're stabilizing, right? Like it's like you're trying to, I think like even now when I'm walking, compared to when I walk without weight, you're always really mindful of your position, like your torso position.
Well, yes, it gives you feedback. It's proprioceptive feedback when you've got the vest on. It's like your muscles seems to engage you in a way that's different to when you don't have the vest on. So
yeah, it's almost trying to
feedback.
correct your posture all the time, where
Yes.
I don't actually notice that when I walk without weight.
No.
So I
there's-
don't, scientifically, you would know better than me, but I don't know. I just think it's the same with what you said, using it even in a sitting scenario at work. I think it's still going to have you mindful of your posture, and probably just making little mini changes all the time to how you're sitting, which I don't like. You'd have to do a long-term research thing to see what the benefit was, if any, but commonsensical,
Yeah, 100%.
it would kind of lead towards that being a good thing. We do get people ask whether they should wear it at work, and I'm like, oh, you're in a warehouse, and they're like, oh no, I just sit at my desk. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, that'd be interesting to see what the long-term benefits were wearing a weighted vest while you're at your desk.
Well, I'd be interested to see how they feel after an 8-hour day of wearing a vest.
Yeah, for sure.
It would definitely, I think, having worn it now for so long, used it regularly, it would make a difference.
One of the things that seems to be trending at the moment is these little exercise snacks.
Yes.
So for me, I like the idea of having your vest over your chair at work, and then, every 45 minutes to an hour, when you get up to go to the toilet, or when you go up to make a cuppa, or you've just got a chance to whip it on and then bang out some squats or something like that. They're saying that there's a lot of, and I don't know if it's been researched or if it's just influencers coming up with all this sort of stuff, but the fact that, they're saying that taking those little mini breaks from sitting is probably more beneficial than going for a seriously long walk.
Yes, well, they said that it improves insulin sensitivity and glucose regulation. Every 45 minutes, 10 squats.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense because we're designed to move, right? And we don't, and that's part of the reason why our bone density is so bad, because people are just not moving enough.
Yeah, right. And is that so? That would be.
Just keep standing there. Keep talking if you want.
Is that something that's been documented, like now versus 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago? The bone density piece.
Oh yeah. Now 2 out of 3 Australians. 2 out of 3 Australians. I had to research this and go, are you sure of that? Have low bone density over 50. So that is crazy. That is crazy stuff. And that's men and women.
Yeah.
So there's been now I've got because I'm a bit dyslexic with numbers, it's either 23% increase since 2012
Yeah.
in those statistics, and they're expecting there to be in another 10 years another 34% increase. So over the last 25 years, the next sort of last 12 and then the next 10, they're expecting a 68% increase in those numbers.
Wow.
In Australia, that's just Australia.
Yeah.
So,
And that's mostly from just being sedentary.
well, it made me
we sit
think,
a lot.
why is that? And it's got to be because I thought maybe it's because, our sugar, our diet is so crappy, people are overweight, but actually the research I showed is our sugar consumption's going down in the last 10 years. But what is going up is our sedentary lifestyle and our time inside, indoor. So one of the absolutely crucial vitamins that's required for bone density growth, maintaining bone density, is vitamin D.
Sunlight.
Sunlight. So,
And is there any, actually on that, is there a bone healthy way to eat?
yes,
Like, is there like you hear about protein and muscle?
yeah,
Like, I never really hear anyone talk about diets and its effect on bone density.
massive. So, I'll just give you a brief physiology lesson in bones.
Nice.
So bones, think of them like a building. You've got the scaffolding in your building, and that's the steel framework. And that's what we call the collagen matrix of bone. So that's made up of protein and collagen. And then you pour the concrete and you harden it all up, and that's the minerals such as calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, boron, quite a lot of minerals make up our bones. And we think of our bones as hard, but they're actually very, very malleable, or else every step we'd be taking right now, something would be breaking. But they're solid, but they're also malleable. And the minerals and the cells in the bone are we're constantly building more and then losing more, building more and losing more. So what happens with low bone density is that we lose more than we're building back up. And that connective tissue, that scaffolding, and then the cement, the minerals start to deplete. And what we've thought of is it's mostly a female dominant. Women get osteoporosis. But men get osteoporosis. In fact, over 70, the stats are very similar. And men's mortality, if they have a fracture, is worse than women.
Oh, wow.
So that was amazing. So, without a doubt, the primary influencer of your bone density, hormones. So estrogen builds up, holds that kind of matrix, and testosterone. So as women go into menopause and men go into andropause, those levels decline, and the in versus the out, there's an imbalance in how the bone matrix is being formed. So, secondary thing is diet, 100%. So, you need protein in your diet. We need protein for healthy bones, but we need calcium, we need phosphorus, we need magnesium, and we need vitamin D and K2. So, one of the things that I've actually written an example diet for a day that would hit all your nutritional needs for a day's...
From bone density standpoint,
from
or
bone
everything?
density.
Bone density,
Just bone density. So you need 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo protein.
Yep.
Minimum. So you need more protein than I do, but a lot of people aren't eating enough protein. I think it's changing.
There's not that many grams of protein in a bag of Doritos.
Well, I was talking to a patient of mine who's 50-year-old bloke, hard worker, diabetic, and I said, well, tell me what you eat. Oh, I have oats for breakfast. Where's your protein? Don't have protein. What do you have for lunch? Oh, I just have a salad sandwich. Where's your protein? And then what about afternoon tea? Oh, I just have, a cup of tea and a couple of cookies, whatever, because then I can have my insulin. That just drives me nuts. That's another story. Just don't have the sugar, mate.
Yeah.
But anyway,
everything you've said so far is pretty sugar heavy.
Very carbohydrate heavy, and then at night time he has his spaghetti bolognese, which is probably a family of 5, maybe not a lot of protein for a man. That's very, very common.
Yeah.
So it's not actually that hard to meet your protein needs if you have some form of protein 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
And animal-based is better. I mean, the vegetarians, the vegans will have something to say about that, but we just know that animal products are more bioavailable, that they just are.
Yeah.
So diet has a big influence on bone density, but then secondary bone density causes of low bone density, things like stress. So cortisol
yeah.
breaks down the bone. So I was thinking of you. We probably need to get your bone density done.
Yes.
Because
I've
of-
had DEXA scans and my bone density is really good.
Well, that's because of the sport you play when you're a kid, probably.
Yeah.
And the basketball that you did. And
Yeah.
But this is why men have such bad results if they break a hip, because often by the time they break a hip, they've got type 2 diabetes, they've got cardiovascular disease, they've worked their whole lives behind a desk, not sleeping, high stress job, lots of cortisol, and their bone density, which we don't think about it for men, has just started to slowly erode.
Fall off a cliff.
So stress, cortisol breaks down bone. The other thing that often people don't think about is corticosteroids. So asthmatics that have been taking pulse doses of prednisone,
Is that like the puffers?
puffers, they're
Yeah.
oral steroids,
Yeah.
but it's more the prednisone when they're having acute attack. People with inflammatory bowel diseases are often on a lot of prednisone. People with autoimmune diseases take prednisone, and that erodes at the bone as well. So you've got certain medications like corticosteroids, protein pump inhibitors, which is used for reflux.
Oh, yep.
So many people are on reflux medication.
And that's got to stem from what you eat, though. That's being acidic, right?
Well, there's
That's probably
a lot.
a big generalisation.
That's a
but
big, yeah, there's a lot to do. Reflux is often due to your gut microbiome, timing of when you eat, connective tissue disorders, there's a lot. But mainstream medical treatment is to put them on antacids.
Yes.
So that lowers stomach acid, and then that blocks calcium absorption. So you think you're having your yogurt and your dairy and your cheeses for your calcium, but you may not actually be absorbing it at all. Yeah, so that's where men slip under the radar. So you've got a guy that's stressed, mouth breather. So when you, like I am right now.
As you said that, I'm like, oh, shut my mouth.
Keep your mouth shut. It's really hard to talk and nasal breathe going up a hill. It'll be interesting what the heart rate's doing. We're in 31 right now. So when you're a chronic mouth breather, so you're basically hyperventilating chronically, it changes the pH of your blood. Your blood, it has a very tight, narrow band of acid versus alkaline balance. You get that out of balance, the first thing that happens is the body pulls calcium out of the bone to buffer it into the blood to balance you back out. So high stress, high cortisol, diabetic, mouth breather, that's like...
Well, outside of the mouth breathing, it's a surprise that I've got such a good bone density number. I think I'm in like the 99th percentile or something.
Well, that's because 90% of your bone is built by the time you're 20.
Yeah, well, that makes sense then.
So, and that's why I think the statistics are going to be so bad in the next 10 years, because kids are not as active as they used to be. Like, when we were kids, you'd come home from school, you'd have your afternoon tea, and you'd be off playing, right? Kids come home, they have their afternoon tea, straight on their devices.
Yeah.
So, critical time is between, up until 20. So 90% of your bone density is built in those formative years, and then peak bone mass is about 30. So between 20 and 30 is when you should be getting in the gym, continuing to play your sport, put some force through your bones before you get, osteoarthritic and damage your knee. And so building it then, making sure your diet is right, enough protein, keep away from, because sugar is inflammatory, as we know. Too much of a high carb diet, processed foods.
Alcohol.
Well,
I don't think the kids have got that problem now. Most of the kids don't seem to, like, I think this Gen Z is going to be a really interesting case study to watch through their life, because they're, you know, like, I'm in recovery centres as a 53-year-old guy, and there's kids that are 17, 18 coming into sauna and cold plunge.
Yeah, amazing.
And they're all doing their run clubs and they're all worried about their sleep health. And I'm like, that was at the point, that 17, 18-year-old mark is where the wheels fell off for me. And I was probably just fortunate, from a bone density standpoint at least, that I was super, super active from like all my life up until I was about 18.
Yeah.
You know, I used to train basketball and play basketball probably 40 hours a week. And that constant jumping and God knows what must have set me up pretty well, because everything after that was pretty much a train wreck.
But it can, and also what would be protecting you right now is testosterone. You're a male with testosterone. Oh, you have zero. Wow.
I've had low testosterone forever.
So the slippery slope isn't as slippery.
I know, right? And that's what I'm kind of sitting back and I'm waiting. I get a DEXA about every 6 months, and I just always wait for that, you know, everything's going to fall off a cliff moment. And visceral fat is like my DEXA is, that's why I get it, because I'm trying to get rid of visceral fat. But everything else, like my muscle mass, my bone density and everything is like top of the class. But
well, that's what's protecting you, is your muscle mass.
Yeah, my visceral fat is horrible. But yeah, but I just, every time I'm just waiting for that one, whatever age that's going to be, where you just see a massive decline in bone density or muscle mass.
It's about 70 for men.
Yeah, right.
So if you continue to do what you're doing now for that 70-year-old version of yourself,
yeah,
you won't go there.
No, nice.
But no one thinks of that. When my motivation is, I've had a grandmother and a mother that have both had severe osteoporosis, and I've seen what spinal fractures does to a person's quality of life, pain. My grandmother, that's what killed her.
Is that what, was that like a deciding factor in you becoming an osteo?
No, I always knew that I was going to be in the, I thought it was going to be medicine, but I then realised I didn't want to tell someone they were going to die. So osteopathy kind of was something that I was actually divinely drawn to.
Yeah, right.
But watching what they went through, and the other thing too is that there are genetic polymorphisms that we're going to talk about another time that can predispose you to low bone density, and I've got that. And they've got a lot to do with vitamin D metabolism, and that's why getting out, generating some vitamin D is so important to bone health. And then pairing that with vitamin K2, and what that does is make sure that the calcium that you do eat gets shuttled into the bone, not into your arteries. So if you have these...
Because you don't want calcium in your arteries,
no.
right?
And that's where a lot of people go wrong with calcium supplements. They have these big doses of calcium, and it can be getting into the wrong place, right? That's right. If you can't stand on one leg for more than 10 seconds, we should try it now. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we're all good. We're not going to die in the next 5 years.
What about plane? Does that mean I won't get hit by a plane or hit by a
Well, I
truck?
can't guarantee that. But we're not going to die of a fall-related accident. So if you can't stand for 10 seconds, the stats have shown...
Should I get all my parents to test that?
Yes.
Yeah, you should get everyone you know.
Everyone you know. I get every one of my patients to go, well, If you can't do that for 10 seconds,
You're
the
in trouble.
statistics say the next 5 years you're going to be 84% of people will be dead.
And so if someone can't do that, what would you prescribe for them?
That's a great question.
Is it practicing that maneuver, or is it just
So what I get to do is start with them in the corner of a room, like the corner.
Yep.
So they've got just their shoulders just off contact.
So touching
if they
to
touch,
both wall, yeah.
Yeah, so if the walls are here, if they fall, they've got something to touch.
Yep.
And then just practice that. And then as they get a bit more confident, they come a bit more off the wall. And then, or they've got poles, like with poles. So they hold their poles, they let go of their poles and practice. All it is practice.
Yeah.
So I've had so many people, elderly patients that can't do 10 seconds, come back 6 weeks later, and one lady was up to 2 minutes. She was better than I was.
Wow.
I was like, what have you been doing? She goes, every chance I get, I'm holding, just hold lightly and then let go.
And I think it's
Practicing.
also, that's a really good drill for recognizing when you are becoming off balance.
Yes.
Particularly if you haven't been able to do that leg hold for 10 seconds and then you practice it, you'll get to know when you're starting to lean or become off balance, and I think it just allows them to catch it before the fall happens.
And also shows you, I need to do some more core work. Yeah. So when I did this test about 3 years ago, and I could only do 25 seconds, and I was like, that is disgusting. And so I just practiced every day, and I'm up to 2 minutes, and it's like, I'm bored now.
Yeah, you start falling asleep.
So I
fell over because I fell
poses.
asleep during my leg hold. And you mentioned poles. That's a good segue into, and you mentioned Nordic walking a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I've noticed that you have been getting right into your Nordic walking.
Yes.
Explain to everybody what the hell that is, because as a preface, I did go and do one, I wouldn't even call it a class. We spent maybe an hour just with Dennis, which is Lisa's husband, trying to explain to me how to do it properly. And something I thought was going to be dead easy. It's just walking with poles. The technique involved, it's like you're learning how to walk again.
Yeah. So most people think of walking with poles that is for old people who need stability. And yes, that is a component of it, without a doubt. But Nordic walking is a specialised pole where there's a glove attached to the pole, and the angle at which you place the pole is a little further behind. So there's a guy in front of us walking with a stick, right? And that stick is he's got it out in front of him as he plants the stick.
Which is because I've used poles when I've done ultra running.
Yeah.
And that's how you would use your poles in a ultra running standpoint.
So that is using poles in a trekking mode. It actually slows you down. But it makes you more stable. It really helps. The poles out in front help when you're going downhill.
Yeah.
And certainly, probably more, it does help when you're going uphill because you can kind of use your arms to pull yourself through. When you're Nordic walking for fitness, the technique is such that you plant the pole in mid.
Yeah, because it's mostly behind you,
Mostly
right?
behind you. And then as you swing through, you push back and you propel yourself forward. So you've just gone from making your walking using about 45% of your muscles to using 90% of your muscles, because you're suddenly engaging your whole upper body, your triceps, your lats, your forearms, your pecs, as you propel yourself forward. So
But you're still getting some forward momentum benefit by using the poles?
oh yeah, you get heaps of forward momentum.
Because that's the bit that I think you don't think, when I watch you do it properly, you just look at it and kind of go, oh, it doesn't appear as if you're getting as much benefit out of planting it in front of you and
Yes.
whacking it through.
But I've got the stats to say that I'm walking with these poles and my heart rate's 160 beats a minute and all I'm doing is walking on the flat.
Yeah.
But then you can slightly change the technique. We've got a lady, for example, who's 80 and she couldn't walk around the block without feeling unstable, unsafe, and she couldn't, she would get really tired and fatigued. So she came for a walk with us, just a social walker, but she used the poles a little bit more out in front of her.
Yeah.
So a bit more trekking style. And she walked 4Ks. And she said, oh my gosh, she was so proud of herself. She had less fatigue. So what we're doing with the Nordic walking is teaching it two ways. One is as a fitness tool for people like me.
Yep.
To get fit, but also for older people that are on that cusp of, if I don't keep moving, I'm going to sit on this couch and I'm going to stay there. But if I go for my walk, I get tired, my knees are sore, my hips are sore, and the poles take about 25% of load off your knees and your hips. So that's where it looks like it's easier when you watch me walk, because it is taking some of the load off my lower body. That's why I wear a ruck vest, because I actually want load through my lower body. But I'm working harder, so it's lower perceived exertion, but you are actually working harder. And the stats from European studies have said that up to 46% more calorie burn. That's if you're going for it, like really going for it. But I just see it as an amazing tool to keep people moving in terms of that kind of mid-60s. People start to then, I can't go because my knee hurts, or I've got a patient that had an actual proper tear in her hip and she couldn't walk for more than 8 minutes. She's up to 2 50-minute walks a week now.
Oh, wow.
Because of the poles are taking some of that load off, and so now she's getting fit again. Whereas if she didn't have those poles, she would have stopped walking.
And she just, for her, it just helps take some of that pressure off her lower extremities.
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
So,
and so do you think Nordic rucking could ever be a thing?
well, I think absolutely, because why would you Nordic ruck? And that would be for people like me that don't have knee, ankle, hip problems. So I want the extra weight through my body for the bone density effect.
And the big muscle groups.
And the big muscle groups, because we want strong, not skinny.
Yes.
And let's face it, if you've got bigger, stronger legs, more muscular legs, if you do fall over, you've got a bit of a buffer. And also, I'll just slight deviation. I've spent my entire life hating my thighs because...
You thought they were too big?
Thought they were too big, too fat. I carry fat around my upper thighs. That's just, the DEXA scan shows that my upper body is 17% body fat and my lower body is 34. It's like double.
Yeah.
But that's my body's way of protecting me, because my little greater trochanter is right there in my bone. If I fall and hit that greater trochanter, which a lot of women, that's our shape, we've got wider hips.
Yep.
If I've got a bit of fat there, thank you very much, body.
It's gonna.
I'm protecting it.
It'll protect the blow.
Yes.
Nice.
But that's just a revelation of finally loving myself, my body. At 54 years of age, I wish I had have come to that realisation at 24 years of age.
Oh, so you've only just recently. Yeah. It's a recent thing.
It's like a recent thank you, body. Thank you for protecting me. Well done. So that's just...
I wonder what my big belly's protecting me from.
Yeah, that's right. There is some, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of that yet, but there is some thought that there is a protection of a reason there. The body does lots of things to protect itself, so...
Maybe one day a big fella's going to come and punch me in the belly.
Well, if you got stabbed, at least you'd be...
You get all the gravy would come out first before it hit a vital organ.
Well, I do know a guy that did get stabbed and he had a big fat belly. It's the only thing that saved his life.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a true story.
Jeez, there you go.
So...
I like I put a post up about me looking very chunky on a ruck.
Yes.
And you were mentioning that there's as long as you're fit, there's something about that it's not so bad having a bit of chunk.
Well, the statistics showed that leaner people who do not exercise,
the skinny fat,
well, not even skinny fat, they're not even fat, they're well, yeah, I guess you call them skinny fat, but they do not exercise, will die sooner than the overweight exercisers.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you're exercising, you're carrying a little bit of extra fluff, don't give yourself too much of a hard time, unless you're drinking beers and eating McDonald's and smoking. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But I wanted to share that with you because you were giving
it was
yourself
good.
a hard time.
Yeah, I just, it's a big goannas coming out of the bush.
They'll see my heart rate spike.
Yeah, now she's up to 186. Now, Tom has a good knack of capturing me where I look like an orangutan.
Right.
I got the big boobs and the gut hanging out.
Well, I hope you got my nice voluptuous thighs in there, thanks. Right.
But I actually like it because, like, because I am as fit as I've ever been, and I do this as part of my job, you know, strap 11 kilos to my back and go for nearly a 5K ruck by the time we get back. I do get a bit of a false sense of, you know, that I don't need to do any more, where because I do get the DEXAs and I do know that my visceral numbers are still pretty high, which is sitting over all my vital organs. It's those little moments where I'm flicking through the pictures that Tom's done that I go, oh yeah, I got to keep the focus on.
Yeah, I've still got work to do.
Yeah. So it's sort of, I don't beat myself up about it. It's just always nice to get that.
But look how far you've come.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, absolutely, look how far you've come.
Yeah.
If you had have kept going the way you were, you'd be dead, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So
yeah, I'm happy, but it's nice to have those little moments where you're like, still got some work to do, boy.
yeah. But exercising is like the fountain of youth, 100%.
Yeah, I couldn't be in a better spot now where my day involves either catching up with someone for a chat or running a ruck club group with like last Friday we're in Wollongong in a new area. We're doing events and catching up with people, and it's just just by default I'm moving.
Yes.
And that was the whole reason behind me getting back into being an entrepreneur again. Like, it had to be in an industry where I do this stuff as part of my day-to-day.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I was saying to Tom on the way back from Wollongong is that we want to get to a point where, like, every lunchtime I'm catching up with a small to medium business and doing a team building ruck with them.
Yeah.
And then also, going out a few times a week to record podcasts with people, which is out in the bush, and forever testing myself. Like, I think that's probably where I think those photos are good for me, because I do get a little complacent on, I should always be challenging myself to carry heavier and walk harder. Yeah. Where, if I've been out for some walks like this, which, this is a good track, but it's not super challenging for me now. Like,
it's not like we're doing the ramp 10 times.
No. And they're the things, like, I've got that Hastings Road behind my house.
Yes.
Which is very, like, if I do that with 12 kilos in my rucksack, I'm bouncing off zone 4 and 5 the whole way. And they're the things that I need to continue to do regardless of how many times I go for these easier rucks.
Well, everyone needs to do at least some kind of that zone.
Well, it's almost like HIIT training, right?
Yeah,
And I don't go to a gym, so me getting HIIT's hard unless I'm carrying heavy weight and going up lots of hills.
But that's the thing with walking, and that's why progressing and having different weights with the RUKVEST helps, is because, the first time I put that 5 kilo RUKVEST on and went for a walk, I was like, holy crap. It was like quite humbling that just an extra 10% of weight could make such a difference. But, you adapt. That's what the body does, it adapts. But you can, like you said, get complacent. Hello. You can go, oh yeah, I've been doing this, and That's why I like to, I know as much as I don't love all this electromagnetic stuff on my body, I love data.
Yeah.
I like to know.
Well, you want to know what it's cause and effect, right?
Yes, yeah.
And that's, I guess that's the thing. You look at these guys like Dave Asprey and Brian Johnson, and I'm like, they go too far the other way, where they're trying so many different things at the one time that even if you do see an improvement in something with them, you don't really know what it's exactly attributed to. So
We've got too many balls in.
yeah, like that,
Yeah.
man, that Brian Johnson's taking like 400 pills a day.
Yeah, that's
And I'm
nuts.
like, so which 4 of them are the
Yes.
ones that you'd recommend to
100%.
Lisa, the osteo, to help her improve her health? Or do you just expect that everybody's going to take 400? Like,
Well, that's, science 101. You only have one parameter that you change.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what,
And
anyway.
that's the hard thing, I think, too, when you're on a little bit of a health journey, is that, well, particularly for me, that's 110% on or 110% off, is that I want to throw everything at whatever I'm doing,
Yeah.
but then it becomes a job and it's too hard to stick with it. And that's where we kind of, we preach the whole rucking thing, is like, even if you're putting a vest on and just making your walk to the kids' school or to the walking the dogs or whatever it might be a little bit more meaningful. It doesn't have to feel like you're doing specific exercise.
Well, I've got a couple of my patients that are rucking regularly, and I can see a massive difference in their physique, their bodies, like more muscle mass, without a doubt. They're women.
Yep.
And they can't see their backs. They can't, everyone's really hard on themselves.
Do you get your clients to go and get DEXs occasionally? Or?
Yeah. Those who want to. A lot of people just don't want to know.
Yeah.
So I had one lady exactly that. She's, her last DEXA was 3 years ago, and 3 years ago I encouraged her to just start exercising stuff. So she started Pilates class, she started doing some more strength work, she started walking, she started Nordic walking and changing a few things, and I can't remember the stats, but the weight loss was about 5 kilos, but the fat loss and the muscle gain was, I can't remember the exact statistics, but I was like cheering.
Yeah, right.
Like I was nearly doing backflips, so happy for her.
Yeah.
And I said, you've just hit the holy grail. You've lost considerable body fat, you've put on muscle mass.
Yeah.
She said, but I've only lost 4 kilos.
Yeah, on the scales it doesn't show as a win,
Like,
right?
oh man, you're like transforming your body. So, yeah, it's a working I think they're really, really helpful, those scans.
Yeah, and I'm big on scans over scales,
Yes.
because I'm in this scenario where, well, actually, I always say that I don't care if I'm putting on weight, if I'm putting on muscle, but I think my last scan when I was like 104, I was 87 kilos of muscle and bone.
Yeah, wow.
So, and that was what I was saying about being in a high percentile.
So your BMI would be crappy, but your muscle mass
Yeah,
is
like I've got
off the scale.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm probably 30% body fat or whatever, like
Yeah.
stupidly high. But my bone and muscle density is amazing. So going off the BMI test, it doesn't really work for me, because they say that my ideal weight for my height is actually less than what my muscles and bones weigh.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But, I think it's a good, people beat up on the BMI, but I think for its intended purpose, to give GPs like a quick, 1 minute thing to assess
Yes.
where you're at. And so just in general, like you're someone who, as an allied health professional, like keeps like educating on a lot of different health things. Like I know you've done the red light stuff and you've done the circadian rhythms. Like what's the latest thing that you're Is there anything else that you're diving into?
I'm diving deeper into the genetic testing, the DNA health and wellbeing testing, but I'm still in the middle of an advanced course for that. But I think really I'm just diving into as much information about exercise and bone density and longevity, really. What's needed to keep us in that last decade of our life, whether you want it to be between 80 and 90, 90 and 100, that's where I'm focusing my attention.
Yep.
And
that nominal decade.
That, you know, increasing our health span, not just our lifespan.
Yep.
And what I'm coming up with time and time again is movement is medicine. We have to keep as much muscle mass as we can for as long as we can. And that requires movement, right?
Yep.
And a certain nutrient input.
More protein,
balance.
people.
More protein, particularly women. And then the light environment, of course, that's crucial. So that's why I so love rucking, because it sort of ticks all the boxes. And the only thing that I'm trying to navigate away from my patients with that, because a lot of people are, like I said, injured. You know, they can't go into the gym and start doing deadlifts. They couldn't do a push-up to save their life. How do we start these people moving that's safe, that is going to be enjoyable, and progressively improve their outcomes? So I'm kind of working through that at the moment so that we keep people moving but safely.
Yep.
Because after the information on particularly postmenopausal, menopausal women and, you know, lifting heavy, and I just got a bit concerned that I know what the research says,
Yep.
but that was very much cherry picking the cohort. So how do we keep these men and women strong and safe?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because your clients aren't just perimenopausal women, right?
Oh no, I've got men that are like got prostate cancer and they're on hormonal blocking therapy, and they're losing bone mass and muscle mass at a rate of knots. How do we keep them strong and feeling like they've got some self-worth
Yeah.
when all they've got the energy to do is walk? But putting a ruck vest on those guys, slow and steady,
Yeah.
because there is a lot of noise about women's health at the moment, and I'm all for that, but I'm also like the men. Let's not, because they're the ones that don't tend to look after themselves until they retire.
Yeah.
And then,
Sometimes it's too late, right?
well, and I had nearly an argument with my husband's best friend on Sunday over breakfast, and I was kind of saying about the mortality rates for the men that have a hip fracture being worse outcomes than women, and that they don't tend to look after themselves. And he got really animated, saying, you know, so we work our asses off, we provide for our families, we do overtime, and now you're telling me that we don't look after ourselves. And I'm like, well, it's true. You are looking after your families and working extra hard and doing overtime.
And that's probably why you're not looking after yourself as well as you should.
Yes. But as you said earlier, this next generation that's coming through, and I've got a 24-year-old son, and I'm watching, they do go to the gym. They are, you know, counting their macros and watching their nutrition. They seem to be more interested in looking after themselves.
But do you think that comes from us?
I think maybe my son certainly said he's grown up with me as his mum, you know,
Yeah.
fully into health. But, you know, his dad, my husband's overweight. And that's a different, scenario. But he's more the product of being a great sportsman and being able to eat whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And then suddenly
And
you
stopping.
had an injury at 40 and couldn't run anymore, but the habits kind of stayed.
Yeah.
And then suddenly when you've got insulin resistance. But I think this younger generation, there is a group of young men and women that are interested in, I don't know whether it's because they're interested in how they look. Is it?
I think a lot of it's got to do with, the Instagram factor.
Yeah, is that their driver to look like good?
Yep.
Or is it that they're driven by health? But whatever makes them healthier, I'm all for.
Oh, for sure. Well, we're back at the car. It's been a pleasure as always. Next one, let's not catch up in 6 months' time, but maybe a little before.
Well, I've got to walk 300 kilometres in a few weeks.
What are you doing?
I'm doing the Portuguese Camino Trail,
Oh, wow.
which is 300 kilometres over about 12 days.
Nice.
I won't be wearing my RUKVEST.
No, why not? I wanted
I'll
some
be
pictures.
I'll be wearing probably a backpack with probably about 5 kilos.
So you'll be well prepared for it.
Yes.
But I think the next one we'll do on genetic testing.
Yes.
And I'll come in and get a genetic test prior to us catching up next time.
Yeah,
We'll do the swab and see where I'm at.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
See you next time.
See ya.
All right, there's another Rucking Good episode in the books. Hopefully you liked it, and if you did, feel free to share it around and throw us a like and subscribe if you so wish to. If you would like to see or be a guest on Rucking Good, please drop me an email to team@ruksak.com. And until then, we'll catch you on another episode.